Welcome to all the participants again in this third session, and in the last two sessions we could complete the meaning, understanding of the concept of organizational behavior, and then in the second session we were talking about the scope, importance and nature of organizational behavior. And now today in this session we will talk about the historical development of organizational behavior, or we can say the evolutionary process of organizational behavior. Organizational behavior is a discipline which is not very old. It started with the Max Weber's organizational studies. The traces can be located in his studies, who practiced from 1864 to 1920, and in his studies there was concern for the human relations and human behavior. Then the next traces can be located in the scientific management. The basics emphasis of scientific management was how the principle of science can be practiced in the management to enhance the productivity, to attain the organizational goal. And in that, the propounder of scientific management, F.W. Taylor, who propounded not only the practice of scientific principles, he was concerned about human beings also, and that is, human beings means how human beings should execute their actions, and what is relationship between their actions and time consumption. So, these traces also shows the initiation of organizational behavior. In the studies of F.W. Taylor, he emphasized about goal setting, rewards, and he has also discussed about motivated workers. So, goal setting means there is a key element of behavior involved in setting of the goals. So, how goals should be set, and not only that, what should be the reward? Reward is related to the actions of the people. So, reward will help the organization to motivate, and motivation is one of the function of behavior of individual. Which kind of behavior is appropriate, which should be rewarded, and which behaviors are not appropriate, or the person should abstain, the group should abstain to execute that kind of behaviors. That was also part of emphasis of scientific management. And then the thought of scientific management further emphasized on rationalization of organization with time motion studies. As we were talking, that there is a relationship between time and motion. Time and motion means how physical activities, how the human actions should be generated, so that minimum time can be consumed, and time has a direct relationship with human working. And if we talk about in the present day, time equal to money. In certain professions, what kind of behavior, what kind of activities the organization should train its employee for the execution, so that there will be minimum consumption of time. Time is not related to the action of individuals or group. Time is also related to the structure of the work. So, the F.W. Taylor emphasized that it is job design, division of work, and all these factors should be taken into consideration, and then accordingly the behavior of people will have impact on them. After the traces identified in scientific management, then in 1920s, one of the great philosopher, Elton Mayo, who was a professor at Harvard University, he conducted number of experiments which are popularly known as Hawthorne plant experiments, and these experiments were specifically related to the human relations and human behavior. So, from 1920s onwards he worked, and this particular era is known as the human relations movement era, and this era focused, or we can say that Elton Mayo focused on the formation and working of the teams, groups, and how people can be motivated for attainment of organizational goal. These factors were emphasized by Elton Mayo, and in his studies a number of other contributed, and these people are Henri Fayol, Chester Bernard, M.P. Fayol. Number of these people contributed in the approach of human relation management. And after that, the quantitative research approach where statistics and mathematical models. At a particular time, we started with the scientific management, then we included the human relational approach, and to ensure the maximum productivity, to ensure the maximum attainment of organizational goal, even the mathematical model were included in execution of organizational goal, and different mathematical model in the form of operation research, in the form of statistics started being practiced. Nowadays, it is not possible to accomplish any organizational goal without the application of operation research. Basically, the concept of operation research has evolved from the military services and the American military services. Basically, operation research was initially practiced for mobilization and provision of army resources to the defense personnel, and they try to understand that how the resources can be mobilized in utilization of minimum time, minimum effort, minimum energy, and yes, minimum expenditure. And then gradually this field was taken over by the industry also, and nowadays the complete production, transportation and other managerial functions are being executed with the help of operation research and statistics. So, this is also one of the landmark in the evolution of organizational behavior. Now, what is the relationship of quantitative technique and organizational behavior? Quantitative technique means now we will make the working of organization not only based on the human relations, the scientific principles, but of course understanding the return on investment, exact measurable return on investment. The quantitative technique was induced for that purpose. Then in the modern management, the contingency theory, the informal organizations, then institution theory and resource dependence and population ecology were also included in the development of organizational behavior. And as a result of that, there were major contributions. The contribution by F.W. Taylor, that is during 1956 to 1950, and he is considered as father of scientific management, and his contribution is he contributed in the form of practicing the principle of science, and principle of science means how people should be selected scientifically, how the need of human resource can be calculated scientifically, then how the production process should be planned and executed by using the principles of science, and the principle of science means the application of technology. So, if we go back in the past among the industries and businesses of early 90s, there was yes application of the technology, but if we now compare it with the 21st century technology, there is lot of difference in that, and now majority of business industrial processes are based on scientific principle which are being executed by the technology. And after that, the second set other significant contributors were Henri Gantt, Frank Gulbreth. Henri Gantt developed the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart helps us to design the process for execution of a particular business or organizational activity in how many steps, which we can decide sequentially, one by one or parallelly, so that minimum effort, minimum energy, minimum time and minimum resources can be utilized for the execution of organizational work. And Frank also designed and devised the practices of direction for mortar consistency. He actually studied with the brick layering how the process of brick layering can be made effective and more productive by reducing the time consumed for it, by reducing the effort required for that, and what kind of other resources can be used for that. So, with this then next the contributor second major development of current organizational behavior theory was human relational movement, and in this movement the contributors were Raymond Mill, who discussed about the relation approach, and one of the quote by Raymond is, treat people as human being. We need to understand it. If we want to practice organizational behavior in an appropriate manner, then we need to treat people in human as human beings. And here we need to understand the human. Human means everyone has certain basic need and rights, basic minimum need and rights. If the organization is not supporting, if organization is not creating that kind of environment and culture where the basic need and basic requirement of human beings are not addressed. For example, let us take example, if the pregnant women are working with the organization, if elderly people are working with the organization, if young people are working with the organization, then what kind of culture and environment should be there, so that the need of people not related to the business and industrial working only, their basic personal and group need can be addressed. So, emphasis was given on that by the Raymond Mill, and another advocates of human relation management were Elton Mayo, and Elton Mayo conducted number of experiments among different industrial plants, and he worked for the Hawthorne Studies from 1923 to 24, and he was head of a team, number of people who were involved in that, and he conducted major 5 experiments. Among those experiments, the very first experiment was illumination experiment. So, in this first experiment, the emphasis was not only on the physical factors, the factors included were mental and emotional also. How the mental state of individual and emotional state can have impact on the working of individual, and ultimately how it can affect the process of attainment of organizational goal. The second experiment conducted by the Elton Mayo's team in Hawthorne Studies was relay room experiment, where the 5 girls were put under a study with the varied kind of working situations and possibilities to change the working conditions, and their working conditions were measured and evaluated, and as a result it was found that it is not the what kind of working conditions are there. The finding reveals that the productivity can increase regardless of manipulation of factors under study, and emphasis was given on in this study that the independent and dependent variables have impact because of how people are related and how the environment of workplace is working. Then the third experiment conducted by Elton Mayo and team under Hawthorne study was bank wiring room study, and in this again the certain physical conditions were taken into consideration, and massive interviewing as a result of that was conducted, and outcome of this these studies was that human relation movement has been criticized as the shortcomings in both the scientific and human relation movement. So, the processes of leadership, communication, counseling came into existence, and this approach helped in development of all this, that these factors of leadership, communication and counseling can have impact on working of the people, and when there is appropriate leadership and the communication among people is appropriate, and if they are providing counseling to each other, or in nutshell, as a result of leadership, as a result of counseling and as a result of communication, if there is appropriate relationship among human beings, even during such situations or such conditions which are not appropriate for the business, the business or organizational work can be done in a better way. So, as a result of all these different contributions by the Elton Mayo and team, we could understand, evaluate, predict and modify the human behavior. So, these experiments emphasized for the forthcoming business and organizational generations that it is mandatory to understand, very first is to understand the human behavior, and after understanding, explaining it, and after explaining, evaluating it. And what is role of understanding the human behavior? Again, to identify that behavior which is supportive in the attainment of organizational goal. And if we have understood that, then how these behaviors can be utilized for the betterment, for the effectiveness of organization. So, there is need to explain them to others, and this explanation is to modify the behavior, to control the behavior. Modification and control of behavior, these are two different factors. So, the era of modification and control of behavior started, and then evaluating means whatever new mode of behaviors have been developed and are being practiced by the employees, whether they are appropriate for execution of work or not, continuously and persistently the behavior should be evaluated. And yes, there is need to predict the human behavior, and this prediction is which particular set of behaviors are appropriate for organizational working and which are not. So, those behaviors should be predicted and people should be modified, behavior of people should be modified accordingly. As a result of that, the competency on the part of not only behavior, on the part of physical execution of work can also be attained, and this competency can be enhanced as a result of experience and exposure to the people, and by this way the human behavior can be modified, and as a result of that there are different factors can be identified, that is the appropriate value system, the appropriate organizational culture, the set of emotions and the practice of emotional intelligence, and yes, a typical environment and job design. Before we conclude this session, there is need to understand all these factors. As a result of evolutionary process of organizational behavior, starting from the organizational studies of Weber, and then by the inclusion of various management approaches, and yes, contribution by the psychology, sociology, anthropology and technology, the human behavior nowadays can be better understood. And after understanding that, then yes, there is need to understand what kind of work values or human values, or in nutshell what value system should be practiced. Value system means again what kind of activities will add value to the organizational working, will add value to the human behavior, so that the organizational behavior, organizational goals can be attained appropriately. The next aspect in that is organizational culture. Now, let us try to understand the culture. Sometimes we call it as ecosystem also. Ecosystem means the basic constituent of environment. Environment means the environment which is appropriate for the accomplishment of business activities. Now, if we talk about business, then there are different type of businesses. Business related to the production, business related to catering the services to the people. So, the nature of business changes the culture. So, each and every typical business needs a typical culture, and if that kind of ecosystem or culture is not there, then execution of organizational work will be difficult. And for that, the culture includes the behavioral aspect also, the attitudinal aspect also, the emotional aspect also, the personality and perception aspect also. So, if we want to make the organizational culture appropriate for a specific business accomplishment, different kind of personality, different kind of emotions, different kind of perceptions are required to be involved, and as a result of that, there will be a different set of traditions, different type of environment which will support the organization to attain. And the next element in that is emotional intelligence. Let us try to understand this concept, and this is very important to understand. Reason being, emotions plays a key role in execution of work. If someone is very happy, if someone is in a very pleasurable mood, we can understand that person can very easily be motivated for taking the organizational work. Whereas, the person is under some grief, sadness, then it is bit difficult. Reason being, the mental energy of individual is being utilized for negative emotions. So, emotions has a role in the behavior. If someone is elated emotionally, the work will be different. If someone is depressed emotionally, that will hamper the work. So, emotions has a role. Now, emotional intelligence. Intelligence is how effectively someone can adjust with the environment, and here environment is the environment or culture or the ecosystem of organization which is involving the emotions. So, which emotions are appropriate for execution of a typical work, and which emotions are hampering the organizational work. Taking these factors into consideration, then there are two aspects of emotional intelligence. First one is how intelligently someone is expressing his or her emotions and which are synchronized and tuned with the frequency of execution of organizational work. Whereas, the second part is how effectively someone is understanding the emotions of others intelligently, or in other words, how the intelligence related to the practice of emotions can be used in such a way, so that it is supporting the organization or business to attain the organizational goal. So, these emotions play a key role in that. Next one is work environment. Work environment, physical environment, technological environment, political environment, social environment and cultural environment. An environment has got number of factors which are working together. How people are relating to each other socially, what kind of power authority is being practiced, and what type of politics and diplomacy is being practiced at the workplace, what type of technology is used in the workplace, and how it is affecting the working of individual and group. All these constituents work together and create an environment which is supportive for the attainment of organizational goal. And another factor which is key factor in understanding the organizational behavior is the job design. And job design means to understand what is job, and after understanding what is job, to understand what are different constituent or job roles. If a doctor is practicing in a hospital, then it is job of the doctor. Then in the job of doctor, what are different job roles? And job roles means the job role related to the medical practice, the job role related to the administration of the hospital, job role related to other aspects. So, there are different kind of role, responsibility, duties, activities, assignment and work. Now, for the execution of that, how individuals' jobs should be designed. So, during the evolutionary process or the historical development, the organizational behavior has tried to understand all these factors and the historical aspect with reference to the various chronological factors, as well as the contribution made by different philosophers or experts in the field has been discussed, and how it will affect the different constituent of organization has been discussed. And here we are concluding our this third session, in which we have discussed about evolutionary process of organizational behavior. I think all you might have enjoyed it, and yes, you will learn from it, and we are concluding it here. Thank you for your keen participation, and in the next session we will come up with another topic of organizational behavior. Thank you very much.